Hello, internet world. Today, we are going to read chapter 8 in the House of the Tisroc. So, to catch us up, in chapter 7, we heard what had happened to Aravis and her encounter with Lasaraline and how they're trying to sneak her out. And the last thing we read was, so they found a place, they're sneaking out, and then they find out that the path that they're taking is about to be on a collision course with, well, some people, and they don't know who it is. So then they sneak back into a room, hide behind a couch, and Aravis's head seems to be, like, you can see it if you look in the right way. When they get in there, they think they're okay, and then suddenly the door opens and people come in, and they discover that it's actually the Tisroc himself and the Grand Vizier, who Aravis was supposed to marry, and who she's told her father that she's married, and that's where we left off. Just where the Grand Vizier got down on his hands and knees and elbows and laid his face flat on the carpet, and there they are. That's where we left off. So, chapter 8, in the house of the Tisroc. "Oh, my father, and oh, the delight of my eyes," began the young man, muttering the words very quickly and sulkily, and not at all as if the Tisroc were the delight of his eyes. "May you live forever, but you have utterly destroyed me. If you had given me the swiftest of the galleys at sunrise, when I first saw that the ship of the accursed barbarians was gone from her place, I would perhaps have overtaken them. But you persuaded me to send first and see if they had not merely moved round the point to better anchorage. And now the whole day has been wasted, and they're gone, out of my reach. The false jade, and here he added a great many descriptions of Queen Susan, which would not look at all nice in print. For, of course, this young man was Prince Rabadash, and, of course, the false jade was Susan of Narnia. Compose yourself, O my son, said the Tisroc, for the departure of guests makes a wound that is easily healed in the heart of a judicious host. But I want her, cried the priest. Prince, you're not a priest. Shouldn't be a priest. But I want her, cried the prince. I must have her. I shall die if I do not get her. False, proud, black-hearted daughter of a dog that she is, I cannot sleep, and my food has no savor, and my eyes are darkened because of her beauty. I must have the barbarian queen. How well it is said by a gifted poet, observed the vizier, raising his face, in a somewhat dusty condition from the carpet, that deep draughts from the fountain of reason are desirable in order to extinguish the fire of youthful love. This seemed to exasperate the prince. Dog, he shouted, directing a series of well-aimed kicks at the hindquarters of the vizier. Do not dare to quote the poets to me. I have had maxims and verses flung at me all day, and I endure them no more. I am afraid Aravis did not feel at all very sorry for the vizier. Nor will you when you see the picture. As a kid, I always thought this was a very funny scene. The Tisroc was apparently sunk in thought, but when, after a long pause, he noticed what was happening, he said tranquilly, My son, by all means desist from kicking the venerable and enlightened vizier, for as a costly jewel retains its value even if hidden in a dunghill, so old age and discretion are to be respected, even in the vile persons of our subjects. Desist, therefore, and tell us what you desire and what you propose. I desire and propose, O my father, said Rabadash, that you immediately call out your invincible armies and invade the thrice accursed land of Narnia and waste it with fire and sword and add it to your illimitable empire, killing their high king and all of his blood except the Queen Susan, for I must have her as my wife, though she shall learn a sharp lesson first. Understand, O my son, said the Tisroc, that no words you can speak will move me to open war against Narnia. If you are not my father, O ever-living Tisroc, said the prince, grinding his teeth, I should say that was the word of a coward. And if you were not my son, O most inflammable Rabadash, replied his father, your life would be short and your death slow when you had said it. The cool, placid voice in which he spoke these words made Aravis's blood run cold. But why, O my father, said the prince, this time in a much more respectful voice, why should we think twice about punishing Narnia any more than about hanging an idle slave or sending a worn-out horse to be made into dog's meat? It is not the fourth size of your least provinces. 1,000 spears would conquer it in 5 weeks. It is an unseemly blot on the skirts of your empire. Most undoubtedly, said the Tisroc. These little barbarian countries that call themselves free, which is as much as to say idle, disordered, and unprofitable, are hated to the gods and to all persons of discernment. Then why have we suffered such a land as Narnia to remain this long unsubdued? Know, O enlightened prince, said the Grand Vizier, that until the year in which your exalted father began his salutary and unending reign, the land of Narnia was covered in ice and snow and was moreover ruled by a most powerful enchantress. This I know very well, O loquacious Vizier, answered the prince, but I know also that the enchantress is dead. In the ice and snow have vanished, so that Narnia is now wholesome, fruitful, and delicious. And this change, O most learned prince, has doubtably been brought to pass by the most powerful incantations of those wicked persons who now call themselves kings and queens of Narnia. I am rather of the opinion, said Rabadash, that it has come by the alteration of the stars and the operation of natural causes. All this, said the Tisroc, is a question for the disputations of learned men. I will never believe that so great an alteration and the killing of an old enchantress were effected without the aid of strong magic. And such things are to be expected in that land, which is chiefly inhabited by demons in the shape of beasts that talk like men, and monsters that are half man and half beast. It is commonly reported that the High King of Narnia, whom may the gods utterly reject, is supported by a demon of hideous aspect and irresistible malfeasance, who appears in the shape of a lion. Therefore, the attacking of Narnia is a dark and doubtful enterprise, and I am determined not to put my hand out further than I can draw it back. How blessed is Colorman, said the Vizier, popping up his face again, on whose ruler the gods have been pleased to bestow prudence and circumspection. Yet, as the irrefutable and sapient Tisroc has said, it is very grievous to be constrained to keep our hands off such a dainty dish as Narnia. Gifted was that poet who said, but at this point Ahashta noticed an impatient movement of the prince's toe and became suddenly silent. It is very grievous, said the Tisroc in his deep, quiet voice. Every morning the sun is darkened in my eyes, and every night my sleep is a little less refreshing because I remember that Narnia is still free. Oh, my father, said Rabadash, how if I show you a way by which you can stretch out your hand to take Narnia and yet draw it back unharmed if the attempt proved unfortunate? If you can show me that, O Rabadash, said the Tisroc, you will be the best of sons. Hear then, O father, this very night and in this hour I will take but 200 horses and ride across the desert, and it shall seem to all men that you know nothing of my going. On the second morning I shall be at the gates of King Loon's castle of Anvard in Archenland. They are at peace with us and unprepared, and I shall take Anvard before they have bestirred themselves. Then I will ride through the pass above Anvard and deep down through Narnia to Cair Paravel. The High King will not be there. When I left them, he was already preparing a raid against the giants on his northern border. I shall find Cair Paravel, most likely with open gates, and ride in. I shall exercise prudence and courtesy and spill as little Narnian blood as I can. And then what remains but to sit there till the splendor Hyaline puts in, with Queen Susan on board, catch my stray bird as she sets foot ashore, swing her into the saddle, and then ride back to Anvard. But it is not probable, my son, said the Tisroc, that at the taking of a woman, either King Edmund or you will lose his life. They will be a small company, said Rabadash, and I will order 10 of my men to disarm and bind him, restraining my vehement desire for his blood, so that there shall be no deadly cause of war between you and the High King. And how if the splendor Hyaline is at Cair Paravel before you? I do not look for that with these winds, O my father. And lastly, O my resourceful son, said the Tisroc, you have made clear how all this might give you the barbarian woman, but not of how it helps me in overthrowing Narnia. O my father, can it have escaped you that though I and my horsemen will come and go through Narnia like an arrow from a bow, yet we shall have Anvard forever? And when you hold Anvard, you sit at the very gate of Narnia, and your garrison in Anvard can be increased by little and little till it is a great host. Is it spoken with understanding and foresight? Sorry, it is spoken with understanding and foresight. But how do I draw back my arm if all this miscarries? You shall say that I did it without your knowledge and against your will, and without your blessing, being constrained by the violence of my love and the impetuosity of my youth. And how if the High King then demands that we send back the barbarian woman, his sister? O my father, be assured he will not. For though the fancy of this woman has rejected this marriage, the High King Peter is a man of prudence and understanding who will in no way wish to lose the high honor an advantage of being allied with our house, and seeing his nephew and grandnephew on the throne of Colorman. He will not wish to see that I live forever, as it is no doubt your wish, said the Tisroc in an even drier voice than usual. And also, O my father, and O the delight of my eyes, said the prince after a moment of awkward silence, we shall write letters to the queen. We shall write letters as if from the queen to say that she loves me and has no desire to return to Narnia. For it is well known that women are as changeable as weathercocks. And even if they do not wholly believe the letter, they will not dare to come to Teshbon in arms to fetch her. O enlightened vizier, said the Tisroc, bestow your wisdom upon us concerning this strange proposal. O eternal Tisroc, answered Ahashta, the strength of paternal affection is not unknown to me, and I have often heard that sons are in the eyes of their fathers more precious than carbuncles. How then shall I dare freely to unfold to you my mind in the matter which may imperil the life of this exalted prince? Undoubtedly you will dare, replied the Tisroc, because you will find that the dangers of not doing so are at least equally great. To hear is to obey, moaned the wretched man. Know then, O most reasonable Tisroc, in the first place, the danger of the prince is not altogether so great as it might appear. For the gods have withheld from the barbarians the light of discretion, as that their poetry is not, like ours, full of choice proverbs and useful maxims, but is all of love and war. Therefore nothing will appear to them more noble and admirable than such a mad enterprise as this of, ow! For the prince, at the word mad, had kicked him. Desist, O my son, said the Tisroc, and you, estimable vizier, whether he desists or not, by no means allow the flow of your eloquency to be interrupted. For nothing is more suitable to persons of gravity and decorum than to endure minor inconveniences with constancy. To hear is to obey, said the vizier, wriggling himself round a little so as to get his hinder parts further away from Rabadash's toe. Nothing to say would seem as pardonable, if not estimable, in their eyes as this hazardous attempt, especially because it is undertaken for the love of a woman. Therefore, if the prince by misfortune fell into their hands, they would most assuredly not kill him. Nay, it would even be, though he failed to carry off the queen, yet the sight of his great valor and of the extremity of his passion might incline her heart to him. This is a good point, old babbler, said Rabadash. Very good. However it came into your ugly head. The praise of my masters is the light of my eyes, said Ahashta. And secondly, O Tisroc, whose reign must and shall be interminable, I think that with the aid of the gods, it is very likely that Anvard will fall into the prince's hands. And if so, we have Narnia by the throat. There was a long pause, and the room became so silent that the two girls hardly dared to breathe. At last the Tisroc spoke. Go, my son, he said, and do as you have said, but expect no help nor countenance from me. I will not avenge you if you are killed, and I will not deliver you if the barbarians cast you into prison. And if, either in success or failure, you shed a drop more than you need of Narnian noble blood, and open war arises from it, my favor shall never fall upon you again, and your next brother shall have your place in Colorman. Now go, be swift, secret, and fortunate. May the strength of Tash the exhonorable and irresistible be in your sword and lance. To hear is to obey, cried Rabadash, and after kneeling for a moment to kiss his father's hands, he rushed from the room. Greatly to the disappointment of Aravis, who was now horribly cramped, the Tisroc and the vizier remained. There's a picture here. I don't know how they run with hats like that. O vizier, said the Tisroc, it is certain that no living soul knows of this council we three have held here tonight. O my master, said Ahashta, it is not possible that any should know. For the very reason I proposed, and you in your infallible wisdom agreed that we should meet here in the old palace where no council is ever held, and none of the household has any occasion to come. It is well, said the Tisroc. If any man knew, I would see to it that he would die before the hour had passed. And do you also, O prudent vizier, forget it. I sponge away from my own heart and from yours all knowledge of the prince's plans. He is gone without my knowledge or my consent. I know not whither because of his violence and of the rash and disobedient disposition of his youth. No man will be more astonished than you and I to hear that Anvard is in his hands. To hear is to obey, said Ahashta. That is why you will never think even in your secret heart that I am the hardest-hearted of fathers who thus sent my firstborn son on an errand so likely to be his death, pleasing as it must be to you who do not love the prince. For I see into the bottom of your mind. O impeccable Tisroc, said the vizier, in comparison with you I love neither the prince, nor my own life, nor bread, nor water, nor light of the sun. Your sentiments, said the Tisroc, are elevated and correct. I also love none of these things in comparison with the glory and strength of my throne. If the prince succeeds, we have Archenland, and perhaps hereafter Narnia. If he fails, I have 18 other sons, and Rabadash, after the manner of my eldest sons of kings, was beginning to be dangerous. More than 5 Tisrocs in Tashbaan have died before their time because their eldest sons, enlightened princes, grew tired of waiting for their throne. He had better cool his blood abroad than boil it in inaction here. And now, O excellent vizier, the extent of my paternal anxieties inclines me to sleep. Command the magicians to have to my chamber, and before you lie down, call back the pardon we wrote for the third cook. I feel within me the manifest prognostics of indigestion. To hear is to obey, said the Grand Vizier. He crawled backward on all fours to the door, rose, bowed, and went out. Even then, the Tisroc remained seated in silence on the divan till Aravis almost began to be afraid that he had dropped asleep. But at last, with a great creaking and sighing, he heaved up his enormous body, signed to the slaves to precede him with the lights, and went out. The door closed behind him. The room was once more totally dark, and the 2 girls could breathe free again. And that is the end of chapter 8. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. There's definitely a lot of intrigue coming across here. What's going to happen to this adventure, this plan to go to Archenland? What's going to happen to Narnia? What's going to happen to poor Susan? And what role will Aravis play in the coming chapters? So you'll have to join us on Monday night for chapter 9, Across the Desert, to find out what happens next. Hope you have a great night.